Chapter 4. Jeremy! Ashley screamed as she ran off down the hallway in the direction that the scream had come from. Mike raced towards the sound of the scream along with her, weaving through halls. At some point, Jeremy's screams had become worse. They reached the end and burst through the door to a horrid and bone-chilling sight. Richard was smiling crookedly, face and black eyes half shrouded in the shadows. A knife was at Jeremy's throat. He was no longer screaming, only hiccuping and crying breathlessly, with a complete look of terror on his face. There was blood-soaked gashes in his shoulder, and it became clear to what had caused the screams. Mike was in utter shock. Before melting into rage, he was about to take a step toward Richard, but Richard pressed the knife just a little tighter. I wouldn't be too hasty if I were you, he whispered. Jeremy tilted his neck back, but had no success. Richard had his arms firmly pinned to his sides, and Jeremy was shaking. Jeremy? Ashley whimpered softly, tears filling her eyes as she stared at her brother. Mike was shaking with rage, though he attempted to conceal it. Fear for Jeremy's life. Let him go, he growled. Richard hummed carelessly at this. I'd rather not. That would be so less interesting. He wanted to feel the rest of the guards, blood dribbling down his arm. He wanted to savor the mouth-watering metallic scent of it. Ashley clenched her fists as tears began to fall down her cheeks, but then unclenched them. She was frozen in a state of fear for her brother's life. Richard turned the knife around and drove it down into Jeremy's shoulder. He let out a choked cry of pain and shock, 3 exclamation points on his face. Jeremy! Ashley screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. Stop! Please, what do you want? Mike exclaimed, pleading, but was afraid to go any closer in case Richard decided to plunge the knife into Jeremy's neck. The madman stopped, though leaving the knife in there rather than pulling it out. Tears streamed down Ashley's cheeks, her eyes full of fear, but fear not only for her brother, but for also Mike, her, and the others. She shuddered slightly.